What's going on, Words Way family? How are you all doing? Yes, you guessed it. We are back with another selfie trap. That's right. Get up out yourself. It's not about you. All right. So we're gonna dig into this, and I want you all to remember, like when we're talking about selfie trap, we're talking about the things that can trap us, trap our souls, the things that are idols in our lives that we may not necessarily always think about. We may not necessarily always consider them to be a bad thing, or however we want to define that. It's the things, the idols in our lives that are about ourselves, the ones that can slip through the cracks, slip through the crevices in our lives and destroy us ultimately. So we're going to be exposing all of those things in these coming weeks and the following weeks, and we got an interesting lineup of people coming, and I'm interested to also hear what God is giving them as well. So just keep that in mind as we're watching and listening to all these things, so we can learn and grow together. But today, what I'm talking about, what God has kind of given me in this around a selfie trap is self-pity. Yeah. It's a weird one. I know we've heard the term, but we don't necessarily hear the term all the time in society, right? So let's talk about this. Let's dig into this. So when we talk about self-pity, this is usually something that comes off, I think this is a tricky one, right? This is one that comes off kind of humble. People would like to come into themselves and say, oh yeah, I'm just a humble guy. I keep myself real humble. And while that's true in some cases, it seems like for a lot of people, it's like a low level flex. It's a humble flex. That's the word I'm looking for. It's like a humble flex. It's like, oh, I don't do too much. I try not to say anything. I'm not the best at this. And it's like, okay, in all of this talking that you're doing, you're really pumping yourself up even more. You're trying to talk yourself down and pump yourself up in one way. Or when it's not humility, when it's actually pity, then things get even more dangerous. There's a rapper, his name is KB. I can't remember the name of the song, but in one of the lines in his songs, he says, self-pity is really pride in self, really. And ever since I heard that, this may have been like 7 years ago, that stuck with me. I'm like, whoa. Self-pity, pride in self, huh? And I think I would have to agree. So let's dig into this a little bit. So today I'm going to read a couple different scripts, couple different excerpts, and we're coming from first Exodus with our good old boy Moses. Those of you who are familiar with this probably know where I'm going with this, right? So Exodus chapter 4, verse 10. I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read this specific part. I'll give you a background though. This is right after Moses has his encounter with God at the bush. And God has given him all the orders and the commands that he needs him to do. So this is what Moses let slip out of his mouth. He says, but Moses replied, God is telling Moses everything that he's going to do. Moses says, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, either in the past or recently, or since you have been speaking to your servant, because my mouth and my tongue are sluggish. Now, you mean to tell me that you are talking to a bush that doesn't burn you when you touch it, and it told you to take off your socks and shoes and do all these things, and you did it? And then he's telling you all these, well, let me not say he. This bush is telling you everything that you're going to do, and you're listening to it, but it gets to this, and now you want to, oh no, Lord, I can't, I'm not the best at, what are we doing this for? Why are we to this point where we have to second guess what God is telling us, and we're putting it in the form of an inability to do something? That's so interesting to me, right? And the thing that makes it more interesting about it is Moses is, in another translation, Moses kind of relates it to people listening to him. He says in the translation, I think it's in the NLT, he says they'll never listen to me. And I think that's where the stone is overturned. Not only in Moses' life right here, but in a lot of ours. We're worried about the wrong thing. When Moses says, oh, they won't listen to me. So you're concerned about what other people are going to think of you. So you try to hide it in this form of having this pity about yourself, in the form of saying you are something that God said you weren't. And saying that I'm not enough of this, I'm not enough of that, I'll never be able to do this, and taking this humble, it's kind of like that pitiful look when God is talking about us fasting and not walking around having this old humble, this old meek drawn out look on our face. Like we're fasting for God, but we're letting everybody know that we're hungry. We want pity. We want pity so people can know, oh yeah, they doing good. They doing what God wanted them to do. Self-pity is really pride in self, really. Having that pride, you want the attention from the other people, from people around you. You want oh, it's okay. And now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's not needed. Like, of course, people that's why we have community, so people can comfort us. But what is the draw? What is the purpose? What is the pull for, or the reasoning for us getting the attention that we're desiring? It's those things that we have to think about or be careful about in our lives, especially when we're talking in the terms of pity, especially when we're talking in the terms of, and especially when we're grieving the things that God told us that we already are. Check this out. So we read on, right? Let's read a couple sentences past this. Moses is already saying, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do this. I stutter, I jabber jaw, all these things. Check out what God said. Then the Lord said to him, verse 11, who placed a mouth on humans? Who makes a person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and I will teach you what to say. What? So you mean to tell me all this time, all these different things that are going on in Moses' head, all these different things that are going on in my head as to why I'm not enough or why I'm not capable, or I'm afraid of somebody's opinion, or I'm afraid of what somebody will say, or I'm afraid that somebody will take what I had to say wrong or do all these things. No, God gave it to you. Now keep in mind, this is coming with discernment. In Moses' case here, he's literally hearing directly from God. This is coming with discernment. This is coming with you spending time with God and gaining your wisdom from the Holy Spirit. This is coming with all these things. But God told you. God gave it to you. Like it's a pure word from God, according to His word, according to what He's saying. Why would we care what somebody has to say? Or even if we do care, why would we let that hold us back from what God has to say or give or share through us? Because we want to be pitiful and carry a pity face? No, not at all. Now, this was interesting, right? This was so cool when I seen this. God kind of gives a reprieve or a second look at the other side, the other vantage point of what Moses was talking about. So let's flip to this. We're going to flip to Acts. Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7, verse 22. Now we're in Acts now, right? And I can't remember if it's Paul or Luke talking about, he's kind of giving like a history of where we came from. But listen to what he says about Moses. Acts chapter 7, verse 22. It says, and I'm going to start at 21. So when he was put outside, Pharaoh's daughter adopted and raised him as her own son, as Moses. So Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in his speech and his actions. Now wait just a cotton-picking minute. So you mean to tell me that all this time we've learned about Moses, and Moses has been this guy who probably had a stuttering problem and this and that and whatever else it may be. And remember, back in Exodus, Moses said, I've always had this issue. He said, before, now, and even since you've been talking to me, Lord, I've never been good with my words. I've never been able to speak. I've never had this and that and whatever you want to call it. But we get here to Acts, and the writer in Acts says that Moses was powerful in his speech. And he's talking about Moses before the whole Exodus event actually even took place. He said he's always been like this. So what is it? Is it that God really is the one who gives us the power in our pity? Is it really that our pity could be misguided and we just have this false, unnecessary pity on ourselves and disbelief in what we can do, or fear and disbelief in the power that God has given us to impact his people? What is it? We can go a couple different ways with this. The Bible doesn't get too specific on that, right? But these are the things that we can think about and consider. On one end, you have the person whose first person perspective on it says that they suck. But then you have someone hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 years later, who comes in and says, no, this person was always dope with whatever it is we're talking about, specifically dope with their speech. And it's interesting too, because the writer knows that what Moses said about himself. He said, no, he was actually always that. He was always dope with speech. You were always great with people. You were always good at your job. You were always great at all of it. Like there's no reason to have this pity. We cannot have this pity and fully function in what God needs us to do. That's the whole reason why God sent the help that he did for Moses, so he could move in what he needed him to do. So go to God in these self-pity. Check yourself, check your heart, check your spirit, where you're coming from, and go to God and let him power and empower you in every single thing that he needs you to do, that he's requiring, that he's asking, that he's commanding, that he's showing you for his kingdom. That's it for Word Wednesday. Stay tuned next week, and we will see you guys at church.